Hi, my name is Allison Jones. I live in Pima County and serve on the Tucson Water Citizens Advisory Committee and Pima County Regional Wastewater Recycling Advisory Committee. I'm a hydrologist who works on environmental and water issues. I spoke in a previous hearing about the importance of competitive districts. The IRC approved LD map features a District 17 that was literally conceived of and drawn by the Pima GOP to give the Republicans a safe district. And I gotta hand it to them. It wasn't easy. They had to include a mountain range and wrap it around the city like a boa constrictor. You can't drive from one end of it to the other without driving through other districts. District 17 as drawn is a partisan gerrymander, and the GOP knew this when they drew it. Otherwise, they would not have tried to pass it off as drawn by the Southern Arizona Leadership Council. No one has said this so far today, so I will say it. This is shameful. I urge the commission to use LD Map 9.0 for Pima. Counties can be important communities of interest, as I said in a previous hearing, and this is true in Pima Pinal, where they relate to groundwater and the Pima and Pinal active management areas set forth in the Groundwater Management Act of 1980. The foothills area of D17 on map 9 is also more compact and competitive than the boa constrictor version, and the 9.0 version of District 17 could be won by any party who advances a capable candidate. I understand the challenges faced by this commission, but the LD maps must be better. The current maps do not meet goals of independent redistricting. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leslie Cobb, 3 years, but my community of interest for today's purpose is the entire state. I believe that we, as a state, benefit most greatly when our legislators arise from districts that are competitive. 17 draft version 9.0, which outlines the competitive district over the currently accepted draft version, which is not competitive. With draft map version 10, there is an overall legislative partisan lean. By moving District 17 towards being a highly competitive, this would reduce this imbalance. In the end, it matters that the views of our legislators are more strongly linked to the overall opinion of the district than to the voters from their party in that district. I hope with these changes, we can move forward toward more bipartisanship in the State House in the next 10 years. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Next speaker is Caleb Hayter. Caleb, can you hear us?
Thank you so much. I live in Northeast Tucson, and I'm speaking with regards to 2 districts. First, Congressional District 6. I think that Congressional District 6, as currently drawn, is not compact and as contiguous as possible, and it does not include communities of interest. Folks in Graham and Greenlee counties don't have a whole lot in common with folks in metropolitan Tucson, and metropolitan Tucson doesn't have a whole lot in common with northern and rural Pima County. I think a more compact, contiguous district for District 6, such as the one in Congressional District Test Map version 1.1, would be much better. And secondly, I'm speaking about Legislative District 17. This district is not compact and contiguous. It's not competitive, and it does not respect communities of interest. Folks in southeast Tucson and Vail have very little to do with Marana and Oro Valley. To get from one end of the district to the other, it is required to leave the district completely. And also, this district, as currently drawn, is a Republican advantage of at least 7 percentage points. I believe that we should go back to the district map 9.0 as proposed by Commissioner Lerner, which satisfies all these concerns much better than the District 17 in the current proposed version. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Brenda Wexler, and I live in Legislative District 10. But when I look at District 17 on map 10.0, I see many voices that will never be heard, not for the next 10 years. To crystallize this thought, I personally call this de facto voter suppression. So today I'm asking you to make District 17 competitive, to make as many districts as competitive as possible. Once done, this will not only ensure the absolute best candidates to represent us, but you, the commission, will ensure this 2021 Arizona Independent Commission to forever be known as making Arizona a more perfect state, a state representative of all of Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Francine Sacchio, followed by Melissa Westbrook, followed by Catherine Nichols, and then Robert Federoff. Francine, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name is Francine Sacchio. I'm a resident of Oro Valley, Arizona. I live at Oro Valley, Sun City.
Don't say her name, just say.
However, I've lived in Tucson since 1999 in the Northwest section. I agree with Nelson Morgan, Mitzi Cowell, Mike, Lisa, Carol Mellon, Jennifer Dawson, Kay Schreiner, Margaret Vogue, Ellen Shanko, Allison Jones, Leslie Cox, Caleb, and Brenda Wexler regarding 9.2 version of the map that has been proposed at this point. I do believe that 9.0 must survive. I do hope you will reconsider the competitive districts, inspire voter confidence. What is going on? Okay. Competitive districts inspire voter confidence and participation. They encourage all parties to advance their best candidates who must run on their merits, not on party affiliation. Something that hasn't been talked about much, but we are a state of three parties. The independents would truly have a voice and a choice if the districts were competitive. Ideally, this would mean 10 districts for each group of voters, and 5 competitive districts as proposed by 9.2 is far too few. Please follow the state constitution. And
Thank you. The next speaker is Melissa Westbrook. Melissa, can you hear us?
My name is Melissa Westbrook, and I live in the far northwest of Tucson. The creation of LD 17 is partisan and clearly favors one party. The gerrymandered map affects every Pima County legislative district adversely. Multiple maps drawn by citizens, submitted properly, meeting checks and balances demonstrate that accepting and adopting this map is unnecessary and detrimental. This map promotes the goal of creating a safe Republican district in a predominantly Democratic county. District 17 is not compact and contiguous. It is made up of selected Republican-leaning suburbs from opposite ends of the Tucson area that are separated by a mountain range. I mean, just logistically, you need to change LD 17, if only for the sake of the person who gets elected to represent it, given the distance factor that he or she would have to cover. The IRC should go back to the LD test map version 9.0 as proposed. As well, the Coconino Board of Supervisors map emphasizes giving the Navajo Nation the numbers they need to elect representatives of their choice and keeping all the northern Arizona tribes together. I want to read you a quote from Pamela Carlin, who is a law professor at Stanford. It used to be the idea was once every 2 years, voters elected their representatives, and now instead, it's every 10 years, the representatives choose their constituents. I would add that compromise and consensus must be the order of the day, and that includes creating competitive districts. Put our great state of Arizona first, not any party. Remember, history will judge you. Thank you for your kind attention.
My name is Robert Federoff. I moved to Tucson in 1960. I live in State Legislative District number 3, and I am a retired social studies teacher in the Sunnyside School District. If I were in the classroom, I would be assigning my students the task of assessing the independence and impartiality of the chairperson of the IRC, to see she was in fact being fair and impartial and following the 6 guidelines of Prop 106 that affect Southern Arizona. At this point in the commission's deliberations, the chairperson would be assigned a failing grade. She has allowed 4 of the 6 goals of the Constitution to be violated. All goals, of course, are as if possible. Violation number 1, the district shall be geographically compact and contiguous. She failed. Violation 2, district boundaries shall respect communities of interest. Failed again. Violation 3, district links shall use visible geographic features, city, town, and country boundaries, and undivided census tracts. Failed. And finally, violation number 4 of the 6 goals, competitive districts should be favored. I believe my students would find the chairperson derelict in her duties to be an independent and impartial chair of the committee. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Nichols, and I was born and bred in Tucson, Arizona. I am the daughter of a legislator who served for 10 years, and I am currently in that area that has been discussed about 1718. I would just like to say that as a family member who ran in a competitive district, it forced us to be better campaigners. It forced us to speak to all voters. And that is part of the reason that 106 had that as one of its key components. Competitive districts make for better legislators. And so I just wanted to put my voice in for MAP 9.0 and in general for competitive districts as one of the key issues after federal laws are accomplished. Thank you.
Based on competitiveness.
Islander. And I'm telling you that because I want Chairperson Newberg to be independent and guided by the goal to fulfill the U.S. Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. I want to thank Commissioner Lerner for defending fair and competitive districts. On October 27th, in our local paper, one commissioner was quoted that maps should ensure more Republicans in Pima County. Now that is a partisan idea and not a fair goal. If you want to see fair maps, I know that Brian Bickle, Barbara Tillman, and Barathon Kalyaraman have submitted better maps. And I would like Commissioners Watchman and York to please consider these fair maps. Proposed LD 16 splits parts of 3 counties, which is a violation of the community of interest. At least put the small part of Pima that is there in your LD 16, make it a part of Pima County in LD 20. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Katie Moss, and I have lived on Tucson's Far East Side since 1985, and I work at the University of Arizona. I don't believe LD 17 in the current draft map lives up to the redistricting goals established by the Arizona Constitution. As so many have stated, it is not geographically compact and contiguous, it doesn't respect communities of interest, and it's not competitive. Instead, proposed LD 17 looks to be the definition of gerrymandering. Not only is it not contiguous, it aligns segments of the greater Tucson area that have little in common other than an abundant percentage of Republican voters to make it a safe Republican district. I'm tired of so-called safe districts that don't represent the majority of centrist Arizonans. I'm tired of having a state legislature that passes extremist legislation that often leads to constitutional lawsuits and citizens' ballot initiatives. Arizonans deserve as many competitive districts as possible. The proposed LD 17 affects my neighborhood directly. I live in the city of Tucson and regularly meet a cross-section of independents, Democrats, and Republicans at my city park. If the pandemic has done one thing for us, it has led more people to stop and talk, and even broach the sensitive topic of politics. I was encouraged to learn how centrist so many people are. Regardless of party, my neighbors were appalled by state legislation attacking public education and voting rights. After extremist legislation was dropped into the state budget bill, these neighbors stopped by my house this past spring to sign petitions for ballot initiatives to safeguard school funding and overturn voting restrictions. I asked this commission to abandon LD 17 as currently proposed in the draft plan. Instead, please give serious consideration to the very competitive map proposed by Commissioner Lerner, LD Test Map 9.0.
Is Andy Flock.
Hi, my name's Andy Flock. I live in Tanque Verde, which is in the much discussed District 17. I live here with my wife and 2 kids. I've lived here for over 20 years. My daughter goes to school at UHS in Tucson. My son is homeschooled, and we participate in lots of groups and events in Tucson. I don't like the way that District 17 cuts me off from every part of Tucson I go to. Our family has gone to Oro Valley maybe 3 or 4 times in the past 20 years. We go on vacation there at Catalina State Park in our RV. Now, District 17 is theoretically geographically contiguous, but as a practical matter, the way people live and travel in their day-to-day lives, it's 2 separate districts, District 17 West and District 17 East. And as people mentioned, they're about 40 minutes apart. As many people have mentioned, District 17 was expressly drawn for the purpose of creating a safe Republican district in a Democratic area. If the Constitution said the commissioners shall strive to create safe districts for the non-majority party and count in urban areas, then I would say that the commission is doing a great job. But the Constitution doesn't say that. This goal of a safe district for the minority party is not in the Constitution, was not approved by the voters, and it's not even being enforced consistently. Where's the safe Democratic district for?
Thank you so much. I am Diane Coscarelli, and I want to thank the Commission for all their hard work and for listening to me today. I will be addressing LD 17, but now I am very concerned. I am concerned about losing what we have these next 10 years. And that is because proposed LD 17 would take that away. LD 17 disregards many of the goals of the Arizona Constitution. It is not at all compact or contiguous. Its communities of interest are far-flung and desperate, and it lacks competitiveness. It sweeps around the outskirts of Tucson, creating an unusual figure to fashion an obviously safe Republican district. I really fear that this version of LD 17 will not only chill voter participation, but it will also encourage extremism. And so what can we do about this? I think there is a viable alternative. I urge the commission, please go back to test map LD 9.0 that Commissioner Lerner proposed. That test map corrects the constitutional shortcomings found in the current LD 17.
Thank you. My name is Tom McConey, and I'm a resident of Oro Valley. And like everybody else, I would like to thank the commission for doing all the hard work that's gotten to this point. Unfortunately, at the last minute, something has happened which leads me to remind the commission that it has an obligation to exercise its power in an independent and ethical fashion. At the very last minute, a map created by a so-called business organization with direct ties to a Republican commissioner was sent directly to chairperson by Republican operatives. Commissioner Mell, instead of immediately recusing himself from the obvious conflict of interest, demanded that his map be approved. Instead of avoiding the appearance of impropriety, he embraced it. His map takes a suburb of Tucson with indisputable ties with his southern neighbors and places it in a district with rural communities over 70 miles away and a mountain range in between. Just looking at the picture of this district would bring you back to the old dictionary definition of gerrymandering. Had Democrats or any other group steamrolled the last-minute map created and submitted by a Democratic commissioner, Republican heads would be exploding. It is not too late to do this independently and ethically. Constitutional criteria can be fairly applied in Oro Valley and statewide, but only if you choose to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Vivek Burhathan.
Hi, my name is Vivek. I grew up in Tucson and graduated from high school in a census year, which was 2000. My friends and I had just learned the impacts the census can have on our communities and our democracy in our government class. So we enthusiastically signed up and interviewed to work for the census. If you're speaking, can you please mute? We had also learned how partisan the redistricting process can be, and it's discouraging that 20 years later, we're pretty much in the same boat, and that's all how it always has been. I want to echo many of the previous speakers to say that the proposed map for LD 17 is clearly gerrymandered and needs to go. I joined those previous speakers in urging the Commission to adopt map 9.0. I also echo speakers like Melissa Westbrook to urge the Commission to ensure Indigenous people are represented in our state's legislative map. Let's show this year's graduates from our schools how this democratic process is supposed to work. Let's have competitive districts, and let's ensure that our elected officials are engaged and accountable to us. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Linda Horowitz. Linda, are you there?
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Linda Horowitz. My husband and I moved to Catalina Foothills over 25 years ago. We moved because he had a job with a large company here in Tucson that develops missiles for our country's defense. Soon after I moved here, Proposition 106 was passed, and I was proud to live in a state that believed in independent redistricting. That's why I'm speaking today. Unfortunately, the maps that are currently being proposed for Southern Arizona do not appear to fit the description that I was so proud to brag to my friends was part of the Arizona law. I'm currently proposed to be in CD6, which creates a finger to grab us away from Tucson and into the rural districts that have nothing to do with our area. These lines are not compact and not respectful to our community of interest, and ignore the fact that we are Tucson and we're not sitting out in those rural areas. I'm also placed in LD 18, but this district and District 17 are snaking around to grab different constituencies without regard to communities of interest or geographic location. They unfortunately have the appearance of being gerrymandered for one political party over another. I'm so disappointed. My current CD and LD are so competitive for both Democrats and Republicans and represented us at various times over the last 10 years with both Democrats and Republicans. I hope that this commission will review these maps, change the lines so that there's compact and competitiveness back into our districts, such as 9.0. Please make Arizona proud. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Frank Bergen. Frank, are you here?
My name is Frank Bergen. My wife and I moved into the Tanque Verde Valley from Southern California 26 years ago. We've lived here in the same house, same place ever since. We are in the valley, which is quite Republican in its leanings. But as I have learned in working in the political life of the community, that people here are ready to support a legislator who will support their schools, they regardless of party. So it's not exactly as though we were in a terrible place for a Democrat. Now, speaking at least for Precinct 199, as an official of the precinct, a precinct committeeman, I can say that the Tanque Verde folks look not north to Marana, but due west to Tucson. We shop in Tucson. My wife and I have bought every car that we've owned since we came here in Tucson. We have visited the Tucson hospitals, the Tucson medical care, Tucson recreation, whether it be at the Symphony or at the Hillenbrand Stadium or McHale. Everything that we do is directed in the Tucson direction rather than way north past the mountains. I love the mountains, but I can't climb the mountains to get from here in a straight line to Marana. As far as competitiveness is concerned, which I have spoken to at every meeting that I've attended in the last 2 commissions, competitiveness should be.
Thank you. The next speaker is Julia Conway. Julia, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
My name is Julia Kendrick Conway, and I reside in the community of Sabino Springs on the northeast side of Tucson in the foothills. My grandparents lived here in Tucson. My father grew up in Tucson, graduated from the University of Arizona, attended Tucson High School. And looking at the map 9.2 for LD 17, it's obviously manipulated to support a certain position. Competitive districts does not mean splitting the state up into X amount of districts that are one color and X amount of districts that are another. Competitive means there's an opportunity for a candidate to run on issues within their district that are meaningful to their districts. As far as the way these district boundaries are drawn in 9.2, they are not geographically compact or contiguous, as others have noted. It does not respect the boundaries of communities of interest, and it is not competitive. It is partisan, and the people that drafted this map were not even hiding the fact that this was a partisan district. So I urge you, commissioners, to please reconsider Commissioner Lerner's proposal, map 9.0, presents a much more reasonable district for Legislative District 17 and allows us to remain competitive and represent all Tucsonans at the ballot box. Thank you very much for your time and for working on this very difficult task.
The next speaker is Corliss Jenkins Sherry. Corliss, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, great. My name is Corliss Jenkins Sherry, and I live in Oro Valley, and I'm retired. I've lived here about seven years. I would like to thank the redistricting commissioners for their work on this very important task. I do not support the configuration of the current configuration of LD 17 that is in the adopted legislative draft map. The Oro Valley area has different concerns than Reddington Pass and Vail. Oro Valley is much more aligned with Casa Adobe and North Tucson, with Oracle and La Cañada as direct business corridors in Tucson. The west side of the Cabalinas are a natural boundary that should be respected. Northern Pima County, the town of Oro Valley, and the Amphitheater Unified School District boundaries should be respected also. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is James Barra. James, can you hear us?
My name is James Barra. I'm a retired physician who's lived, worked, and volunteered in North and Northeast Tucson for over 31 years. After studying the current draft map, I and several of my neighbors who could not speak today have serious concerns about it. I think having competitive districts is very important. Ours is a competitive, ethnically diverse state. 1/3 of Arizona voters are independent. The latest draft map contains several districts that are not competitive and clearly do not follow the intent of Prop 106 and the Arizona Constitution. One glaring example of this is the proposed LD 17, as so many speakers have pointed out already.
I'm still in the meeting and I'm almost up. Okay.
Excuse me, could you please mute?
Okay, did you please?
One glaring example of this is the proposed LD 17, as so many speakers have already pointed out. The Arizona Constitution requires a district be geographically compact and reasonably contiguous. It requires that competitive districts are to be favored and they shall respect communities of interest.
Speaker is Barbara Tellman. Barbara, can you hear us? Barbara, can you hear us? The next speaker after Barbara is Kalyanaraman Barathan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Kalyanaraman Barathan, and I have been a resident of Tucson for 33 years. First, my thanks to the Commission for the time you have dedicated to an important cause for our state and for democracy in general. I digress. In a certain county in southern Arizona, the two competing cable TV companies were permitted to create their own zones. People in the north part of the county get access to one cable company's services. People in the southern part get access to the other company's services. It's like two football teams playing on two different fields. There is no game to talk about. The idea that competitors should have a fair chance of winning is lost, and there is an incentive to ignore the customer, which I think many people around Pima County will recognize. There's a problem with these maps that is similar. There are two new districts in Tucson, LD20 and LD21, that are heavily Democratic, and they need not be. I know it's very difficult to actually redraw the maps to make them less of a packed Democratic district, but it's something that could be considered. Similarly, the new District 17 is very Republican and not competitive either, as many people have pointed out. For LD 17, it would be great if the Commission would go back to LD Test Map 9.0, where LD 17 is definitely more competitive, but that is not enough. I wish the Commission had spent more time considering how to make the entire region more competitive in the real sense of the term. It's not too late, though, to do that. I request that you leave us a legacy of fair competition from the hard work that you're doing with such dedication. Thank you again.
I have lived in Arizona since 1981. I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona. As other people have mentioned, I also am a very big fan of Proposition 106, and when it passed, I was proud that Arizona had done so. But a few turns of the wheel down the road, I've got some concerns about that. It's been said by people who are probably smarter than me that if you don't have any stomach for cheating, you're probably not going to like politics very much. But that's a hard truth that more citizens probably have to swallow than should. But 20 years after Arizonans amended our Constitution enshrining fair legislative mapping, we are hearing about backdoor submissions of legislative maps essentially under a fake hat and mustache, maps drawn that have a blatant partisan intent, submitted in bad faith, frankly, containing textbook examples of the gerrymandering Arizonans so clearly rejected 2 decades ago. There are more issues than I have time to touch on, but Districts 17 and 19 in particular will serve as a Rorschach test for Arizona democracy. What I will henceforth be referring to as the mustache submissions of Draft 10 ignores at least half and arguably 2/3 of the 6 mandates this commission stands to protect. Communities are being divided, shared infrastructure is split across lines drawn for what's obviously partisan intent. Frankly, it's a breathtaking bit of I wonder if anyone will notice politics. Well, insofar as this process is bound to transparency, clearly we notice. I ask that you reconsider and redraw these maps fairly. I think the proposed maps in 9 are excellent, and I'll conclude here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. The next 3 speakers are Susan Anderson, Carissa Sipp, and then Barbara Tillman. Susan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. You can hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hello, I'm Susan Anderson. I have lived in Pima County Precinct 40 for over 30 years. My children attended school in Marana Unified School District. My precinct is in an unincorporated area of Pima County between Marana and Oro Valley. I can understand the logic of IRC members wanting to place Marana and Oro Valley in the same legislative district. However, I cannot see any reason for that legislative district to spread clear to Tanque Verde and then over to Vail. There is no good way to get from Marana to Vail. In the past 10 years, I have visited Vail exactly 0 times. For the past 10 years, I have been part of LD 11. That's been problematic. LD 11 spans more than 100 miles, half in Pima County, half in Pinal County. It is tilted heavily towards one political party. Consequently, we have been represented by some of the most extreme politicians in the entire state, Mark Fincham and Vince Leach. They have listened only to their base because there has been no need for them to listen to other residents in their legislative district. I was looking forward to the redistricting process so we could start fresh in the northwest part of Pima County. My own precinct is very evenly balanced between Republicans, Democrats, and independents. The surrounding area is similarly balanced. Would like to have politicians from both parties making good faith pitches to win our votes. But it has been publicly stated that the new LD 17 is drawn in a way that is meant to be a safe Republican district. It is worrisome to me that we could end up having a repeat of the same LD 11 problem with extreme politicians. But this can be fixed if the IRC has the will to fix it. First, eliminate Vail and Tanque Verde from the new LD 17. Second, respect legitimate communities of interest in the Marana-Oro Valley area. That could be accomplished by including the entire Marana Unified School District in the new ULD. The community of Picture Rocks is in Marana Unified and also within Pima County.
Thank you. The next speaker is Carissa Sip. Carissa, can you hear us?
And I've changed my speech a little bit, but I want to really stress that I'm here to talk about the real goal of the Arizona IRC. I know I want to stress the competitive nature of the legislative and congressional districts, and that's the focus, and I think the goal that I actually, as a voter in 2000 elected when I was living in Phoenix at that time. I live in LD, or by the current map proposal, I live in LD 18, I work in LD 21, and my daughter attends school in LD 20. So that just shows you how cut up Tucson is to appreciate the, LD 17 creation. I have elderly relatives that are in LD 17 that are perplexed at the new mapping, and they've lived in Arizona for over 50 years. It's like a chimera-shaped district. That's the best way I know how to put it. So in looking over the release map and the bad haircut Tucson got, I kind of just wanted to know what was the protocols, or how did we rate? So there was a Princeton gerrymandering report card I reviewed because it was noted on the landing page from the IRC. I would expect A's across the board because this commission is dedicated to nonpartisan, really getting down to what Arizona wanted. Well, that's not what I saw. We receive only an A and a nonpartisan advantage, but the devil is in the details. The competitiveness of the districts almost came out with an F. That means the map could and should be much better. And I go back to the LD test map 9.0 as being a better map that we should probably refer to. And a lot of people are making that comment as well. In addition to the low grade in the maps, we're not compact. We're not doing the right thing of thinking about county crossings that we have. We've crossed over counties over and over again, and our shapes are not even close to what they call a REOC scores that are optimizing for the representation according to that.
Thank you. The next speaker is Elizabeth Packard. Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Packard, and I'm a 50-year resident of Arizona, and Pima County has been my home for the last 45 years. I will recognize the fact that at least 50 speakers have already pointed out LD 17 is neither compact, contiguous, nor contiguous, and so therefore it cannot reflect communities of interest. My request is to scrap map 10, as has been asked before, and replace it with 9.0. And because this has been requested by so many people, I don't think I need to be redundant by going through all of the exact reasons why this should be done. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Well, folks, it's 4.5 hours later. Like a couple of the other speakers, I've changed my remarks several times. And I want to make sure the commissioners are hearing, and thank you, Commissioner Newberg, for staying on camera. I appreciate your time, as well as you, Commissioner Lerner. You're hearing the voices of Tucson and Pima County. It is clear we're not happy with LD, the proposed map for LD 17. Even to the untrained eye, this proposed LD 17 map appears to have just selected Republican-leaning suburbs that are in opposite ends of the Tucson area. You know, I found it so disheartening to think that a special interest group of the Southern Arizona Leadership Council could submit a map via a political party and pretty much go to the head of the line. This is not what the IRC was set up for. The IRC was set up so that citizens could hear the voices. Please listen to these voices. The real map that I think you need to go back to that really shows competitiveness is version 9.0. I thank you for your time. Listen to these voices. The reason why we have hung on this long, because we needed to be heard. Thank you.
The next speaker is Marlene Bluestein. Marlene, can you?
The other places in LD 17 that are rural aren't concerned about development and urbanization because they're rural. Oro Valley shares the AMPI Unified School District with Casa Adobes in northern Pima County. We care about top-rated schools. They'll just voted down a continuation of their maintenance and operation override. There's no common ground in any area between urban, suburban, Oro Valley, and these distant rural places. So I would ask you to reconsider LD 17. It's unrepresentative. Oro Valley should be with LD with communities of interest, Casa Adobes, northern Pima County. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great Friday.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Nancy Wexler. Nancy, please proceed.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you to the Commission for this opportunity and for your service. Competitiveness is the lifeblood of our country and our state. In elections, it gives people a choice to elect representatives who stand for the good of the many. My name is Nancy Wexler. I've stood before this commission before as a longtime Arizonan. Pima County, West Tucson, the current LD and CD3 is my community, and I was raised in Central Tucson, the current District 10. The draft map 10 is a self-inflicted wound to the heart of our communities. Watching the creation of the legislative draft map was like witnessing a game of Twister, contorting LD 17 for highly partisan purposes, forcing many other districts to also be much less compacted and competitive, has been noted earlier today. While I recognize the task of mapping is complex, earlier test maps such as version 9 and those submitted by members of my community, like Barbara Tellman's LD 0049, shows the possibility of keeping true communities of interest together and making districts, including 17, fair and competitive. Again, competitiveness does serve us all. It's the power of a democratic republic and the power of an independent commission, which serves to give the voters the right to choose their electors, not the state. The independent commission is a source of pride for Arizona, one for which the voters overwhelmingly enacted to ensure everyone is represented. I urge you to uphold this principle and deliver legislative and congressional maps where Arizona's voters decide, not a predetermined biased group of special interests. Thank you very much.